nothing illegal about employing Steve and Steve saying he's being paid by you, as long as you're paying him. Yeah, and he is and he are getting paid. Yeah, so yeah, it's costing you a bit in tax, but what can you make when you're mortgageable? So very quickly, you both become mortgageable within a very short period of time. Also, if you have a portfolio, you, Steve, the pair of you could set up a limited company. So at the moment, if all the rents are paid into your private account, okay, you've paid them into a limited company, which is a management company, okay, and then you paid, because out of this you pay your mortgages, don't you, and you pay yourself, okay, so out of this you pay that in a part of it into there to pay the mortgages, but this bit you pay from there. You've, instead of having unearned income, which when you're paying yourself from rent money direct, you're just taking it out of your bank account, that's unearned income. If you collect and charge a fee for managing the properties, you can pay yourself dividends out of that company straight to yourself, and then it becomes earned income and it becomes mortgageable. So very often that then allows you to move forward. You can leave work, you can do what you need to do.
And that's just putting the rent through to create an income.
Yeah, it's just putting the rent through.
Not holding the property through.
No, it's just totally a company to set up. It's very easy to make sure you stay mortgageable. But you don't know, I've heard of people that years have like not had a proper income, so they've stopped expanding their portfolio. When all they needed to do is put all their rents through a limited company, and pay themselves dividends, and then they're mortgageable again.
But is the company on the, or is the property on the company?
No, you're acting as a management company, just like if you said to a letting agent, will you manage my properties, please? Instead, you're saying to your own limited company, will you manage my properties, please? Yes. Okay, how much fee do you want? 10%. Okay, it's a deal. And then you pay all the money through the limited company, and the limited company keeps 10%, and then they pay you the 10% they keep in dividends.
Okay. Is there any clash between being already salaried and
There'll be a tax implication, which you need to speak to the accountants.
So you can get taxed on the dividend?
Yeah, you'd be taxed on the dividend. But often the benefits of being taxed and paying tax is far greater when you can become mortgageable and, you know, borrow what you need. You know, it's very easy for Ian and I, if we wanted to buy a £1 million house, for me to employ Ian and Ian to employ me, and I pay him £250,000 a year wages and him pay me £250,000 a year wages. And, you know, do it for long enough to get a mortgage 2-3 months later, he gives his notice, I give my notice.
Doesn't that need to be seen to be going through the bank?
It has to go through the bank.
Right, yeah.
Physically have to do what you say you're doing, otherwise it's fraud.
Yeah. So you need that amount of money?
You need that amount of money, yeah. Yeah, but it doesn't stop you from recycling the same money every month.
So essentially you're doubling your money in that scenario, you're just bouncing it from one to the other.
Yeah, and we could have an agreement that we paid each other, and because I'm employed by his company, and because he's employed by my company, he's very mortgageable and I'm very mortgageable, which will then allow us to facilitate what we need to do. You know, I've asked the question of mortgage brokers and my accountant, and there's absolutely nothing as long as you do it properly and pay the tax. I can employ Ian as a consultant from my lettings company, from my training company. No problem at all. Ian could employ me as a consultant quite comfortably, and as long as we're paying each other, we can put that down in our mortgage application, because we're not putting anything down that's wrong, because he is paying me that money each month.
Can the student be an employee?
You can be you are an employee if you're paying each other, yes.
Although one is a student?
A student? Yeah, student. My son is at university, he's employed by me.
No question mark?
No. Why is there? It's just because it's unusual. It's not common practice. It's not common stuff. Do you want to share with them how you're qualified to tell them?
I am an accountant.
Sorry.
No, it kind of helps. So, right, I would like you to find a blank page in your books, please. And I would like you, and if that's the page, I'd like you to write the numbers in large letters, because in a minute I'm going to ask you to hold them up so everybody can see. Okay? The two numbers I'd like you to write down is one, the first figure that you'd like. Remember I said about these horizons? That horizon might be financial freedom. That horizon might be your Y stage A, and that one might be your Y stage B. You know, and in the future you might add some more Y's in. What I want you to do is give me the two figures of these two things, okay? And I'd like you to write them in big letters, and this is per month. So I'd like you to write them in big letters, and in a minute I'd like you to hold them up. The figure that you need to be financially free so you can give up your day job,
Oh, right, okay.
I'd like you to write that in big numbers on your page so you can hold it up and we can all see per month. So write in letters about that big.
Yeah, okay.
And then your Y, the amount of money that you need to achieve your first level Y, will be the second number that you write down. And I want you to write it in big letters so we can see that. Because in a minute I'm just going to ask you to hold it all up. Yeah, look, just like this. Because this is what, when I give you the strategies, you need to be aiming for. You know, the strategy, the first strategies you adopt will get you to the first number that you've written down, and the second set of strategies you adopt will take you to the second stage. So the first number needs to be a realistic number. It doesn't mean to say it's going to put you in a much better position than you are every month. It might actually be you're slightly less than what you're earning at the moment. It just makes it an achievable goal, that's your goal to be able to leave work. Some people earn £5 a month but only need 3. Some people earn £3 a month but really need 5. Okay? What can you live on each month if you live skinny? Because really what you'd like to do is leave work as soon as possible, and then when you can, even if it's by lowering your living standards slightly, that will then give you far more time to move forward much quicker, and therefore you'll achieve your second number much quicker. So if you can hold your numbers up, that would be really good. So we have a 7 and a 10, a 6 and a 15, a 5 and a 10, a 25. Cool, we've got a right high maintenance bunch here. A 25 and a 100, a 1500 and an 8.5, 20, then 50, then you're going for 100, yep, so 20 and 50. But you're already well past 10. 3.5 and 6, 5 and 10, 4 and 10, 1 and 5, low maintenance. 2 and 5, 2 and 10, 2 and 10, it's interesting, similar numbers. 1500 and 5, you're different. Different numbers. 3 and 10, 8 and 10, 40 and 60 per year.
But yeah, sorry.
So that's about 4, 3.5, 4 and 5.
Yeah, 3.5 and 5.
Yeah, 3.5 and 5, and you've got 3 and 5. Okay. Now, the most common numbers that we normally get, are 3 and 10. Okay? So 3,000 to be able to leave work, and then 10, and I say to people, why did you write 10,000?
Well, it will be very comfortable.
Yeah, because it's a nice number. Who wrote 10? Who wrote 10? It's a nice number, isn't it? Yeah, it's so cool. All right, so what we're going to do is look at different strategies that will allow you to earn £3,000 and then move forward once you can leave work to be able to bring you to your second figure. Now, Sophie came to me over lunchtime when we were talking about her property, and she remembered that you did mortgage it with Mortgage Express, and we did the bridging, and you used our 2 sets of solicitors that we recommended. Let's start talking in a language that we all understand when it comes to markets and micro markets. What we're going to do, we're going to look at the different towns in the country, and some are going to be 1 out of 10 and some are going to be 10 out of 10, and I'm basing it not because it's what we buy, but it's easy just to compare town by 3-bed prices. Okay, the average price of a 3-bed property in Knightsbridge is probably the dearest in the country, around that area. Yeah, so like Knightsbridge would be in the UK a 10 out of 10 area. Now, where are there houses for 30 grand, 3-bed houses for 30 grand? There's some in the Welsh Valleys, there's some right up north, Burnley, maybe, don't know if there's still some at that price in Hull, Liverpool. You can still pick up properties for 30 grand, okay? So they're kind of the 1 out of 10 towns. Do you think the same strategy would work in Knightsbridge as what would work in Hull? No. Yeah. So that's taking it to extremes, isn't it? But we need to be able to communicate with each other so that when you're picking a town, we know how many marks out of 10 it's got. Now, I would put 8 out of 10 as just outside of London. We're kind of talking about 3-bed houses being 300-400 grand. Oxford, Brighton, probably Cambridge, some of Cambridge, maybe Cambridge is slightly cheaper. Guildford, yeah. There's a lot of places like that. That's kind of an 8 out of 10 town. Okay? North London. Now, anybody who's ever been in any of them areas and they've tried leaflet advertising, it doesn't work. Okay, is anyone, you live in that area, Oxford, have you tried leaflet advertising?
No, but I know people that do the sourcing,
Yeah.
and it doesn't work that well at all. It's usually direct referrals, repossessions.
Yeah. And chances of getting a deal by leafleting in Brighton?
There are no leaflets being delivered in Brighton, that should tell you.
And if you look at the cash paid for property adverts in the local paper, there probably aren't any, if maybe one pop up every now and again for a little while and then they give up.
There's one in Oxford, and I phoned it out of curiosity, and they don't pick up. So,
Is that what?
they don't pick up. Just rings out, doesn't even have answer service. Yet they're advertising in a paper.
It's a weird one.
Good business.
Now, Milton Keynes I kind of call a 5 out of 10. Because the 3-bed prices are somewhere between about 100 and 250. Yeah, we got a big swing in values here. But we'll look more at that when we look at the micro markets. 3-bed properties, just 3-bed properties. We're just looking at a very broad brush overview so that when we discuss what strategies work, and I say that works in a 5 out of 10, or it works in an 8 out of 10, or it works in a 1 out of 10, you've got an idea where it works. Okay? So, you know, and it doesn't work in certain areas, and it allows us to be able to discuss it between us. So it's really just, this is a form of communication between us. Right. Let's look at an individual town. So I can look at Milton Keynes quite easily because I understand the town, and I would say that the 3-bed prices start at the we'll call them 3 out of 10s. The 1 out of 10 area of Milton Keynes, there's a couple of 24, 25 story block of flats that's ex-local authority where most of it's unmortgageable. So that's the 1 out of 10. Then we've got some really nasty 3-story, which are mortgageable, blocks of flats around here. So they're the 2s out of 10s. And then we've got the the nasty end of the ex-local authority, the council areas. We've got quite a wide swing in Milton Keynes, but at the bottom end of the market, how can we tell it's the bottom end of the market if we drive around? There is normally cars on bricks with tarpaulins in the front gardens. There are settees in front of garages that have been there with algae growing on them for months. Yeah, there's quite often stone cladding. Very soon there'll be loads of England flags. You know, they will get them dotted around the whole town, but there'll be a predominance, there'll be a much larger amount. What about Christmas? It's like the inflatable Father Christmases all over the house. Who says anything about Christmas? They're normally still there in February. Yeah, so you get the drift? So that's kind of a 3 out of 10 area. Now Milton Keynes, the other end of the 3-bed properties kind of finishes at 8 out of 10. And them houses are 250, 220, 250. Okay, it's 3-bed properties. Okay. So when it comes to different strategies and investing, it's important to understand certain things that are going on. I noticed that going back when I found out about the 6th person that had been through my program that had become an equity millionaire, it was weird that 2 out of the 6 came from the same town. Okay, they were both working in the same town. Now, what I do is I say to all my students, right, so here's the message: when you become an equity millionaire, are you happy if it's a result of what I'm teaching you now? You take that information and become an equity millionaire. Are you happy to come and tell me and buy me a bottle of champagne? Yeah, it's fair enough, isn't it? And share I'll share it with you. Okay. So I've had 57 bottles of champagne and 1 Costa coffee so far. Okay. So it was actually Lee Berridge who actually bought the Costa coffee because he turned up early in the morning. Okay. Did anyone ever see the money program that was called Buy to Debt? It's going back a few years ago. It's at the start of the credit crunch where some people had lost money by buying off plan. So it started off talking about them people, then it showed Lee having tried to buy a couple of traditional buy-to-lets, and then I was very lucky from my marketing perspective that the money program then actually filmed him coming on my property course. And then they filmed him afterwards having bought 2 properties with the estate agents going, yes, you'll make a nice profit out of that. Okay, so he was that person. And he went on to become one of my equity millionaires. The 2 people were no more intelligent, no better people person than some people that were trying to work in another area, but they weren't working anywhere near successfully. So I started asking why. We need to understand this. You know, why can people be working in one area and not being successful as people working in the other area? So we looked at it, and we looked at Milton Keynes and the typical houses, and we looked at the average of the bottom 10 prices, okay, of 3-bed properties. Not ones that move because of auctions, and not ones that were shared ownership. We knew that they were the cheapest 10 properties on the market in the town, okay, and we averaged the price so that we could do that with every town to give us a feeling of the base prices, because we knew we'd need to be buying slightly less than that. So Milton Keynes, the average price then was 110. Okay, and that meant that we would be buying them at around about 75 to 80 grand. Okay, and the rent was 750. Then we looked at Ipswich, where I had some quite intelligent clients that were struggling. And This number at the time, the average bottom end price was 120. That meant that they needed to be picking them up for around about 80 to 85. Okay? And the rent was 550. Okay? And then we looked at Bristol, and the average price was 80, which meant they were picking up at 60, and the rent was 800. Okay? So at the time, now what's happened is this has dropped a bit, that's gone up a bit, that's gone down a bit, and that's gone up a bit. So it's kind of adjusted. Okay? But when you're thinking of building a rental portfolio, where would you rather be building it? So it's really important. So if you look at places, even in Manchester, there's 2 different councils in Manchester, and one pays £200 more housing benefit than the other one, even though the house values are similar. But I understand they're actually going up in the area where the housing benefit gets paid is a little bit more because the investors are pushing the prices, because they're more desirable for investors. It's important when you're starting to build a portfolio that you start off where the area and the numbers are favourable to you. So it's worth doing a bit of research and finding out. Like I know, Northampton for instance, the prices are slightly cheaper than Milton Keynes. The rent is proportionally cheaper. However, the housing benefit room rate in Northampton is very similar to the Milton Keynes one. There's not that much difference. So from a rent to rent perspective, which is one of the strategies that we go through, from a rent to rent perspective, Northampton is a better bet than Milton Keynes. So it's important to do a bit of research before you actually get going and get moving with what you do. What about if you're flipping properties? The key part of information for me when we're flipping properties is the actual time it takes to sell a property. So for instance, if properties in an area are selling in 3 to 4 weeks, I know that market's probably a bit too hot for us to be able to buy anything decent in. But if it's taking 12 weeks to sell, I don't really want to be buying there because I'll be concerned how long it takes me to sell the property. But if it's somewhere between 5 and 8 weeks as an average time, I know the chances are I'm going to pick up the odd deal from that town. Okay, or from that part of that town. It's postcode specific. But if you look at that, where's the best place to flip? Yeah, the blue one. The best place to flip, because you're not going to be competing with so many investors buying properties buy to let. And when we go through the flipping strategy, we'll go into a lot more detail about the types of properties that are best for flipping.
Can I just ask what is flipping?
Okay, yes, please feel free if you don't understand any of the technical stuff that we talk about. It's just when you buy something, do it up and sell it. Okay, just flip it. So, now there's some other information. These houses here that we can buy for around 110 grand, they rent for 750. These ones, where you can pick them up for 180, 200, 220, will rent at somewhere around about 900. That's actually only just recently gone up. It was about 850. Okay. So if you're buying for cash flow, where are you going to be buying? In the 3 out of 10. A lot of people, when they want to get into property, go around the 3 out of 10 area and go, oh, I want to live there. It's not about where you want to live. It's about where makes you money. And okay, the capital appreciation won't be so good, but I was lucky. Who remembers when interest rates went up to about 6% just before it dropped right back down? I was lucky that most of my properties were like cheap, high rent. We're actually okay up to 8% with our portfolio. 8% interest.
What's interest?
Yeah. Has everybody else done a stress test on their current portfolio? It's important to know at what interest rate you would struggle. Do you know what your bust point is? Around 7.
Yeah, mine's
Yours is 6.
it wasn't size 7, then they're the same.
You mean when the rent is equal to the mortgage?
Yes. Yeah. And the mortgage, you'll never ever get 100% of your rent in for every single property, every single month, and not have any voids. So there's obviously that's why the building societies want 120% rent cover. You know, the rent has to be 120% of the mortgage payments for them to lend the money.
But those voids vary, don't they? If you've got a 1-bed flat to a 3-bed semi, I'll find.
Yeah, of course, you get more turnover in a 1-bed flat than a 3-bed house. Our 4-bed houses get virtually no turnover at all. But the 1-bed flats turn around all the time, and the room rents turn over even quicker. But then when you do have one available, when the market was a bit slower, the 1-bed flats would go really quick. And the 4-beds would take quite a long while to go, but when they did, they'd go for a long while. So but now we've just got waiting lists. So we don't have, the demand has gone up absolutely mental around here. Partly because we've got a lot of the London boroughs ringing us up saying, will we house people in our housing benefit houses? Did anyone see an article in the newspaper it's the Milton Keynes one, wasn't it? Yeah, there's an article. They actually said in a local paper that the local government housing benefit pay a local landlord over 650 grand a year, and that we're on the 8th highest payment that anybody gets paid from the government. When we checked it out, it actually works out. We get slightly more. We actually get about 720, 730 from housing benefit properties. It's only 55 grand a month. It's only 70 odd properties. Put it into reality. But they were trying to put a little nasty twist on it to say that it was something untoward going on.
So the people they're asking you to put up, are those tenants getting the London room rates?
No, what they're doing is the London boroughs are paying for them and guaranteeing, and they're also saying if they trash the property, they'll cover it. And the shortfall, because we normally rent our housing benefit limit in Milton Keynes is 749 or 751, and we normally charge 800, but they're happy to pay that shortfall because it's a lot less than. We had about a year ago British Rail open a head office in Milton Keynes, which brought in 800 relocation packages into Milton Keynes. The property prices around here in the last 6 or 7 months, the bottom end of the market has gone up 20 grand per property. Okay. We've got, it's huge, 20 grand, especially if you multiply it by 230 properties. It's nice. But it doesn't mean anything. It's kind of equity, it feels nice. It's gone up nearly 4.5 million, but what doesn't, then it will continue to go up.
Well, I suppose you can remortgage, isn't it?
I don't ever remortgage.
Oh, you don't?
No, I don't ever remortgage.
What would you do then? Keep your loans value down? Sort of?
At the moment, all what will happen is the mortgages are all on interest only, but the loan to value will drop as the prices go up. And my idea, I basically want to have 60 properties with no mortgages, which will give me 50 grand a month from my portfolio to live off, which is kind of a reasonable pension.
Yeah, but is it
60, yeah.
does it worth as an investor to keep full ownership without mortgage on properties?
Everybody is different, and everybody, yeah, I understand what you're saying. Everybody is in a different stage of their investment cycle. Okay, And if you're in an aggressive period and you're trying to grow your portfolio, you'll be highly geared, okay, to allow capital appreciation to happen over more properties. But it's about what you want out of your portfolio. If you're happy with 10 properties or 15 properties cash flowing you 10 grand a month, and you want them all paid off because you've got tidy box syndrome, tidy head syndrome, and it's a great position to feel. It's really nice to feel if you've got 15 properties and no mortgages, you've got 10 grand a year, 10 grand a month coming in. It's a great pension, isn't it? You've got to decide for yourself whether you want to gear up again and use that money to make loads of money, or just calm down. And I suspect that you're not that type, otherwise you wouldn't be here. You're looking at your yacht and going, yeah, I'm going to go, I need £500,000 to buy me a yacht. Depends what you want.
Am I right in thinking the 65% loan to value is like the conservative, or quite a safe percentage?
Yeah, 65% value.
It's not a good way to aim for in an ideal.
Look, it's about interest rates going up, isn't it, as well? But what I do know is last time interest rates went up, the rents went up. They lagged behind, but they did go up because they have to, because not all landlords own all their properties. You know, most landlords have got mortgages, and they'll all be in the same boat. So the only
So I guess as the interest rate goes up, that prices more people out of a mortgage to own it themselves. So
Yes.
the competition for rent goes up. So it sort of swings around.
It is. It's kind of a self-fulfilling thing that no matter, you know, what I like to think, if we invest right, you can toss a coin and it's heads you win, tails you don't lose. Okay? And that is how I like to do investing. To toss a coin and it's either heads you win or tails you don't lose. And if it lands on the side, we've got that covered as well. The conservative bank, Handelsbank, will lend at around 65% loan to value. Banks will give you loans for businesses secured on property at about 65% loan to value of the property. So yeah, so that's their bank's, you know, a property is cash in-able at an auction, isn't it? So it's an auction price, less of it. So you've got daylight. And that's one of the challenges is when mortgages come to an end. I get a lot of portfolio reviews of people that are in their 70s that they've got their mortgages that they've had for a while buy to let coming to an end, but the houses are in negative equity. Yeah, it's not happening quite so much, but for a lot of people that bought portfolios up north, cash flow's brilliant, negative equity. And they're in a problem because their gearing's so high. How do you avoid it? How can you forecast a recession? How can you forecast, you know, I would be, and I'll tell you what we do. For every 5 properties we recommend that you build up your pot by selling 2 and expand your cash flow by keeping 3. And it's a bit controversial because I think you should sell all your properties until you've got 100 grand of working capital. Yeah, you should buy and do up and sell, till you've got 100 grand of working capital. And when you've got 100 grand working capital, you then, for every 5 you buy, you keep 3, sell 2. And then you're always going to be like on the safe side because your capital pot is building up all the time.
So with 100 grand you should be looking to buy about 5 properties? Or?
With 100 grand you can actually buy about 25 properties a year if you're recycling your cash properly. But I'll do that on the timeline, when we do the timeline, okay?
Just on that, I was at a different course a while ago, and I don't recall, they used the price and the rent value to just come up with a ratio. So it wasn't the yield as such, but they just came up and said, well look, if this is at 6, that's a good one, if it's down at 4. Does that sound familiar, how they've done that weird little ratio?
No, it sounds similar to what I've said. See, for me, I'm not talking about yield, because yield is based on your purchase price.
Yeah,
I'll talk about
they rank to a certain area. They'll look at similar how you've done an average price of the 3-bed. Then they'll look at the average rent of the 3-bed, and
Yeah.
they did a ratio and say, no, that's not quite right. We're looking for a slightly higher.
Yeah, and that is yield, isn't it? The figure they're looking at. You know, in northern towns you get a 10%, 12% yield, and no capital appreciation. In London you get 3.5%, 4% yield and huge capital appreciation. You know, right now, if you had a portfolio, you'd want it to be in London, wouldn't you? But 3 years ago, you'd want it to be up north where it's really cash flowing. Okay, so leading up to tea break, what we're going to do is just do a quick overview on the 8 different ways of making money. And then after tea break, we'll go into more detail. First strategy. Strategy you can do with 0 cash. You do not need a whole lot of cash to do this, just your travel money. And that is sourcing properties for other people. Okay. Realistically, fairly achievable. If you're working 1 day a week sourcing, you should be able to make yourself £2 a week sourcing properties. You might have a new job. And I'm going to go into more details of that in a little while. So rent to rent. Rent to rent is the single fastest way of becoming financially free and giving up your day job. Most people who go and do this right will have a £3 cash flow within 3 to 4 months from it. And I've seen many people that have got a £10 a month cash flow within a year. It's where you take a property from a landlord who's fed up with it, and you pay them the amount a tenant would normally pay them as a single let, and then you rent the rooms out. Number 3 is flipping properties. You should be able to make 20 grand per flip if you're flipping in the right price range. You should be able to flip 10 properties a year. My partnership program, if you join that, I actually pay for the houses. You find them, I buy them, I oversee you overseeing the refurb, we then sell it and we split the profit 50-50. I've actually got 58 transactions going on all around the country with people that are on my partnership program. We've got varying amounts of profits from £4 to a property I put £4 into, was the bottom amount we made, to one deal we've got 600 grand profit in. There's quite a lot of deals with 120, 130 grand profit in. So if you haven't got cash, then you can still earn 100 grand a year because you're splitting it with me. If you've got your own cash, but you want me to safety net you and actually come and check you doing it, and I come and check the houses out and make sure it works, then you take the mortgage out, it goes in your name, and I take 25% of the profit. We'll get some interesting things happen. So, it is a ex-local road. This particular property is in Croydon. Okay, and Terry's my partnership program person on this particular deal. There are some semis down the road, and there's a detached there, and the road finishes there, and there is a pathway going through to another road there, and there's a grass verge there, and there's other houses down this road. Now, he called me up and said, because the idea of doing this, and we'll talk about this when we talk about flipping, where strategies in detail, is that we're actually need in London, where the property prices are over a certain amount, to add value to properties. So if we built a 30 grand extension in Hull or Liverpool, how much do you think you would add in value to the house? About 10 grand. Yeah? You'd add 10 grand value. If I did it in Milton Keynes and built a 30 grand extension, I might add 40 grand in value, but it's not worth the time and effort. Okay? In Croydon, where a 30 grand extension will add about 90 grand to the price of a property. So that's how you make money in London, by going into basements, going into lofts and building big extensions, converting 3 beds into 4 beds. Okay, but it's cash hungry. So Terry's had his own cash, and the plan was that I went down there and said, yeah, that's fine, we can build an extension here. Yeah, I know. That's, again, we've got lots of build projects going around the country where we're building houses and gardens. Not only do they cost a lot of money, you make a lot of profit. And we're constantly looking for cash to do deals, and we pay between 1 and 1.5% a month interest to people if you've got cash to fund these deals. So, and you get a first or second charge or a deed of trust on a property. So this one, the plan was to do this. Now this prior property had sold for 320. Sorry, it was on the market originally for 320, sold for 300, and the deal had fallen out of bed and they wanted to go because they were in boxes ready to go, and we bought it for 280. So the plan was build on this bit and then sell it for a higher amount and make a profit. Potentially there was about 60 grand profit in it. What I noticed when I went down to see this is this was a row of council houses. And this road, it wasn't a row of council houses, these were much nicer houses. So I said, look, why don't we take the windows out, make the windows a bit bigger, so it looks different to these ones, and we'll clad the house and make it look different. And instead of having the entrance there, we'll have the entrance there, and we'll change the address to the Deira Road. Okay? Which is something you can do. If you know what you're doing, you're allowed a certain amount of permitted development. So we didn't have a risk with that. But then I noticed, actually, there's enough space to build another house on the side. Yes, there was a big pond in the garden, there was a big shed in the garden, and there was lots of trees, so it had never been noticed. And we got planning permission, okay? And just slightly over a year later, that house has gone on the market at 350, okay? Which means we'll break even, and the cost of the land for this one will be 0. The build cost of this one was 150. Guess what that's just gone on the market at? There's 300 grand profit in it in 1 year, from one deal. And they're out there if you know what you're doing.
There must be a ton of places around where I live that do that with.
That's why you come here, because it opens up your mind to the other opportunities and what you can do.
It's sort of like a council estate, where you know, probably 50, 60 years ago, when
Yeah.
the corners you have the end terrace out, and then there'll be enough on the side garden to build another. You know.
Yeah, and the council at the time didn't care about the land, did they? They just built. If you look at privately built stuff, it's very hard to squeeze an extra house in because they've been very efficient with what they've done. But the ex-council areas of expensive areas, Ian's writing something down. There'll be, houses with plots on the side. I was at one yesterday. I'll show you. I've got the photographs in. Do you want me to show you some photos?
Yes.
Of one we've just done. Right. So this property here, we picked up in Whirlingworth, not Whirlingworth. It's near Peterborough. Okay. We picked it up at 190. We expected to sell it at 230, 240. We were over budget, but we've spent about 25 grand, and the estate agents have just come around and said that we'll get 300 for it now. Okay, but we've also got a plot that we've kept on the side, which we should be able to build 2 houses on. we've got a planning application going for at the moment. And this is actually Wednesday I took these. That's the master bedroom. It's the upstairs bathroom. Kitchen. Cloakroom down by the front door. That's the lounge with a bit of a study area over this side here, which is what the estate agents, because there's lots of people around that area work from home. So we could open this up. This was all like a menagerie of small rooms.
What's the lead time on planning permission?
3-4 months, unless it goes to appeal, and then it's another 6. But on that one we just spoke about in London, Plan B would have been just to build under permitted development. So we could take the risk. With this one, we're on break even. We're actually going to make a profit now because of the price rise, but we're actually on break even with a plot owing us nothing. And to build 2 800 square foot semis will cost about 160 grand to build 2, about 80 grand each, and they'll sell to build, yeah. Plus you've got the land cost, which hasn't cost us anything, and then they'll sell around about 200 each. So see where that fence is? That the back garden, there's the wall to the house is here, and the fence is here, and then this is like parking for 2 cars here, and that fence going back to that house back there is our plot, yeah? That's the fence behind, so you can see the fence with the plot behind it. And that's looking over, that's taking a picture over the fence, so that's the actual plot there. You can see the plot from that picture? And that probably gives a better, because we fenced this whole bit off. So we fenced it off, and when we sell it, we split titles on the same day as it sells. We've got all our ducks are lined up to do it on the same day. So that probably gives you a better idea of the plot. See, it's side on to the road. It's not a plot behind the house where the garden is, it's side on. This is going back a few more weeks ago now. This is my first snagging. I'll go and take photographs of everything that's wrong and then email them. Yeah, it takes 3 or 4 months to get it lined up. The architect has to do a drawing. The solicitors submit it to the land registry and prepare the 2 titles instead of the 1 title, or in this case the 3 titles. And then the day that house sells, we sell just 1 of the titles, but the building society gets paid in full out of the proceeds. Okay, which then leaves us the other 2 titles unencumbered. And then I can borrow to build based on the fact that I've got a plot of land for their security. There's the plot there. So it gives you the type of idea about the size of plot needed.
Which area was this again?
It's near Peterborough. And again, the price per square foot is quite important. Again, if somebody showed me a plot in Corby, 129 grand house with a plot on the side, and other side Northampton, starting to go up north, it's probably one of the highest unemployment rates in the country. So you buy the house, do it up, sell it, the plot will owe you 20 grand by the time you've done it with the price it is. The challenge is that after you've built the house, how much does it cost to build a 3-bed house in Corby compared to London? What's the difference in price? No, the builders are slightly dearer, yeah? And the rubbish disposal slightly more. So it might cost you 10% more. What's the difference when they're done? Huge. So it's about doing it in the right area again. And it's all about price per square foot. If it costs you £120 per square foot to build, and it costs you £100 per square foot for the land, the building, the amount of build you can build on the land, and then you can sell it for 300, it's worthwhile, isn't it? because you're going to make 80 odd grand profit. So we'll go into flipping in more detail. Build a 3 to 10 grand cash flow portfolio. Actually building up a portfolio. That's one of the strategies. Who likes the idea of bog offs, buy one get one free? Okay, so I'm going to go through how we do that. I actually run a day where I take people round to show them the properties that we've done bog offs with. And we've got quite a lot. Buy one get three free, yeah. And it's quite an interesting day, isn't it? You will see things that you cannot actually describe. Does that make sense? It means that when you've been out on that day, you will go round and see things in a whole different way. Because we've done so many different ways of doing stuff. I've never had anybody I can think of who's been unimpressed with the day. It's almost a physical impossibility. I had somebody who was very, very experienced said, Glenn, I don't think I'm going to pick up anything. I'm not paying £1,000 for the day. I don't think it's worth my while. So I said, I'll tell you what, come for free, but if you find something that you've missed, then pay me double. Third house, we got I said, what's the matter? I've got 6 of these. 600 grand he left on the table that he didn't know. So, yeah, I'm going to go through a strategy where you start off with 100 grand, and it's not fast, but over a 5-6 year period, you can build up an unmortgaged 12 to 14 property portfolio, cash flowing 10 grand a month, worth over £1 million. Okay? You start off with 100 grand and roll it forward over about 5 or 6 years using this strategy, and you'll end up with a brilliant retirement fund. We're going to talk about options and delayed completions. When to use options, when to use delayed completions. That's something we do on day 4. The strategy 6 we cover in a lot of depth on day 4. We control a hell of a lot of our deals by way of delayed completions. Okay? We exchange contracts, we do not complete on them. Okay? There's another property. This particular property had been on the market at I think it was on at 450, and an exchange delayed completion is where we actually exchanged contracts on it to complete, and we actually did a deal with the people at 310. So we agreed a purchase price at 310, and he was 12 grand in arrears on his mortgage and about to be repossessed. Got cancer, he was in recovery, remission, so he's doing all right. We exchanged with 12 grand to pay his arrears off, and we've taken over a £1,000 a month mortgage, okay, which has allowed us to go in, and we have a budget of 42 grand to do this up, and we can email this to you so you can have a look at the whole project, as it explains in quite depth on the slides. The biggest thing they were missing is that the lounge was so small. Because if you can see the property at the top up here, the original bungalow, which is the front bit, the back bit's an extension. The original lounge is kind of that size. It's very small, which on a big house like that just doesn't work. So we're actually converting the double garage into a new lounge. Okay, we've had the surveyor out from the Building Society, and we've said, how much do you think when we do this schedule of works it will be worth at the end? And he said 500. So do the maths. And we don't have any finance on it other than paying £1,000 a month for his mortgage. So we'll never complete on the property. We'll just sell it direct to the end user with us pocketing the difference. We've actually got, I think, 2 years to do it, with the provision if we haven't sold it by then to extend.
You're still paying the £1,000 a month mortgage?
Yes, but that's a negotiation. Everyone's slightly different.
No,
Yeah.
in terms of that.
Yeah. So it's just doing it in a slightly different way means that we've got no funding cost.
You said you don't complete
No.
yet, you sell it to the end user.
Yes. But what will actually happen is the end user will buy it from the person that we've exchanged contracts with, because it's an assignable contract. Okay? We'll put a charge on the property for anything over 310 as our cost of works and for facilitating it, which you can do, especially if you've got a building company. And that means that when it pays out, anything over 310, well, we've already paid 12 of it, comes to us.
How does he cover himself if you don't pay the £1,000 a month? Because it's still his property, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a question he said. What if you don't pay us? And we've exchanged contracts. It means that he probably would get repossessed, and he'd be able to sue us for the 10% deposit that we're supposed to have paid him. If you exchange, we can probably wiggle out of it because it's assignable. But what I actually said to him when he actually said that was, "What's going to happen now?" And he said, "Well, I'm definitely getting repossessed." It's very much spinning it into what's in it for them. It's always what's in it for them. Well, at the moment, what's happening? Well, I'm definitely being repossessed. Okay, so your concern is that if I do this and I spend 40 grand on it, I'm going to stop paying it. Do you think that's likely to happen? No. Well, no. No, it was already empty when we moved in. Kitchen, really bad. It's great size, great, but really bad decor. And he'd chosen it all because he'd built the kitchen from new. It's like tiles were disgusting. He'll get 310. I don't know how much he owes on his mortgage or anything like that, because this one come through estate agents. But it means he hasn't been repossessed. He would have been repossessed, the property would have been sold, and then they chase him for the shortfall. And what we're going to do on day 4 is to say when to exchange and when to take an option. We'll go through when to do delayed completions and when to do option deals, and why, the scenarios. We'll do a lot of role plays over the next few days, so we'll be like doing a role play with, we'll get some volunteers from you lot. We're going to look at HMO refinancing, recycling your cash by using the right surveyor. House of multiple occupation. It's when you rent the rooms out. It gives you 3 times the profit of normal and 10 times the hassle of normal.
Yes.
Okay, it's kind of relevant. So when I needed to take on somebody to start running my portfolio, I changed 4 of the houses into HMOs. So they had 3 times the they had 10 times the hassle, and I had 3 times the profit. Okay, but it gave them something to do, and it meant it covered their wages by doing it. No, that was when, because I owned my own properties then. But you, for rent to rent, you can. No, the other person I employed, Sally's still with us now. And then finally, we're going to look at the strategy of building your own properties, and like the ratios you need to look at and the numbers you need to look at. So now I want to start working through some of the strategies. Some of the strategies are add-ons to what you're doing, like the title splitting, the bog-offs. If you go out hunting just for them, they're not that easy to find, and therefore you'll end up not doing much. So like with the bog-off deals, they kind of come along when they come along, and you take advantage of them as and when you recognise them. Okay. The options and delayed completions is really just a way of doing all the other things. Okay. Sometimes when you're not taking traditional mortgages. So again, we go into details on that on day 4. The HMO recycling we'll go into probably on day 3 of actually how to do that. We'll cover HMOs when we cover the rent to rent, which we will go through this afternoon. So what I'm going to go through is sourcing, rent to renting, flipping, and building a portfolio. That's the 4 strategies that you're going to have to choose from, and the other stuff is an add-on. Unless, of course, you just want to do building, but I don't cover that one today. Okay. Building, you need quite a chunk of working cash, as you can imagine. So, sourcing, rent to renting, flipping, and building a portfolio is what we're going to cover. Sourcing is something you can do if you've got no money. Where's the best place to go to find properties to sell to other people? Property meetings? No, that's probably the best place to sell them. Okay? Okay, let's look at this from this perspective. Where in the country is the worst place to live if you want to invest in property and want to build a lot of properties fairly quickly? It is kind of anywhere between Brighton, coming up to Gatwick, going across from Gatwick to Heathrow, and right the way around the M25 back down to Southend. There's a couple of pockets round about the Southend area where it might work, some of the strategies, but pretty much in that area. What's the population of London inside the M25? Yeah, it's 9. Last 10 years ago, it was 9 million. Okay, what's the second biggest population of a city in England? It's Birmingham. And how many people lived in Birmingham 10 years ago? 900,000. So it's a huge difference, isn't it? It really surprised me that, you know, there's 10 million people in London and 1 million people in Birmingham. Okay. Where is it hardest to buy properties? London. Yeah? Yeah, how can you go and source for people properties in London when there's 60 people looking at a house and they're paying 20, 30, 40 grand more over asking price? How can you go and act for somebody else? It's very difficult, isn't it? Where's the easiest place to find people who want to buy properties? London. Where's the people that earn the most money relative in the country? Okay, so to sell your deals, the best place to go is to London, yeah? Any of the property network events between Brighton, right the way around the M25 down to Southend. Anywhere down there, you'll find people who will be willing to buy cheap properties for investment purposes for their pension. What do you think they're going to think when they're living in London and you say, look, I can buy you a property in Liverpool for 30 grand? It's like, it is pocket money, isn't it? Okay, how much can you charge when you sell a property to somebody, a deal? It's partly relevant to the discount, but it's really relevant to the cash flow. So you can get the 10 times monthly profit. So if the monthly profit is 200 quid, you can pretty much source something and sell it for 2 grand. Okay? Who in this room would buy a property that's values at 60, cash flows £200 positive, if they could buy it for 40 grand? Who would buy one of them? Let's show our hands who'd buy them. So look, there's buyers in this room for them types of properties. How far should you travel to go to find somewhere where you can get lots of properties to sell to London investors? I suppose it depends where you live, doesn't it? There's a formula that we use. You go on to Rightmove, you put the name of the town in Rightmove, in properties for sale. Okay? Put the minimum size property, 2 bed, and you put the maximum price, 60k. Where's it easiest to negotiate? In what kind of market is it easiest to negotiate deals that you with discounts for investors? In the towns where the market is rubbish. Okay, and there are still towns out there where the market is rubbish. So what you do, go on to Rightmove, put the name of the town, put in minimum size of property 2-bed. How many properties are there on the market at 60 grand or under that are 2-bed?
So it depends where you live again, really.
Yeah. So if I put that in London, how many would come up? Okay, if you put that in Brighton, how many would come back? The higher the number that comes back, the better the area is for sourcing. Going back a year ago, there was over 1,000 in Liverpool. Okay, Liverpool was kind of about the worst market in the country. So if I went to a network event in London, who's been to a network event? Okay, how do you get the maximum out of a network event? What do you go for? To mingle contacts. Contacts for what? For all sorts. So you kind of go to collect business cards just in case?
No, you're trying to find people for different areas that you might need. So contacts who are buying.
So what specifically do you look for when you go?
So the last time I went for is for people who would be interested in joint venturing and providing finance.
Okay, so how many people were at the network event? How many people did you speak to?
11.
Okay. And if you went to a bigger network event, how many people do you think you could speak to?
Well, about the same.
Yeah. Okay.
No more than that.
Okay, do you want me to share with you how I got what I wanted out of my first ever network event? Okay, so I went to a network event. What happened is I'd got a project and I needed 70 grand for it. The person that was JVing with me was remortgaging their property, and their property were remortgaged didn't come through on time. So I'm trying to refinance it. Well, he was trying to refinance it. I've got this property through my solicitors through a receivers, and we've gone to complete on one day and the money's not there because he hasn't got his money through. So, and I've got my mortgage offer but not the deposit. I was borrowing his money against another property to facilitate it. And the receivers turn around and say, Glenn, we'll give you 1 more week. Next Friday, if you don't complete next Friday, we're going to put it on the open market. It's a property that hadn't been on the market. Okay. So, what do? Do I go around my family and friends and try and raise the cash from there? I'd never been to a network event before. So nobody knew me. So I was a total stranger. I googled raising cash, raising cash in property, and a network event popped up in London, the Property Network Hub, another one that Vanish runs. Has anyone been to that one? Okay. Well, I went down there and I realised there was like over 100 people there, and to find the person that I wanted, the JV partner that I needed, was fairly random. So I did the most important thing and I bought a beer. Sat next to my beer and I got a piece of paper and I wrote on the piece of paper, so clipboard, yeah, but on this I just wrote a piece of paper and stuck it to where I was sitting. Need 70 grand, need it by Friday. If you haven't got it, don't talk to me. Okay, which raised a few laughs, yeah. And people were walking past and starting talking to me, and they're like, oh, what's this all about then? I'm going, well, have you got 70 grand? No. With all due respect, bugger off. I need to be out here to talk to somebody if they have got it. I was focused, you know, like, I needed to find it. Somebody come up and they said, well, we probably would go with you, but not till we know you a bit better. The talk that evening was never joint venture with somebody you've only just met. Which is how when I googled raising money for a property, that I found that event, raising money for property purchases. Yeah. However, 2 people decided to come and have a look at the property. One I played golf with first, and then they come to look at the property, and then the other one come to have a look. And although they both said, look, we need to know you a bit better before we joint venture with you, let's come and have a look at this project and maybe we'll be interested in the next one, both of them offered me the money in this one. So I then had a dilemma that I had two people offering me 70 grand. But I ended up going with the person that I played golf with, because you end up building more rapport. Okay? And does anyone know Dave Kite? I know you know Dave Kite. You know Dave. He was the one who lent me that money. And Dr. David Kite, yeah. And I ended up with over £1 million of his unsecured, like through loads of other deals that we did together. And you never know who you're talking to. And then he put it all in the Bahamas, and he's kind of taken him 3 years to get half of it back, because the market out there went. So he's promised only ever to use his to JV with me in the future. So to get the best out of network event, if you take a clipboard and put on there you've got deals in Liverpool all the time, if you're interested please talk to me. All them people that are walking past that wouldn't know what you were doing while you were there, or you in your case you'd write looking for JV partners for specific deals, come talk to me. You collect the telephone numbers and the business cards of the people who want you to buy properties for them in Liverpool and are prepared to pay you around about 2 to 3 grand finder's fee for any that you find. And then you can set up a little program on your computer, which means you can send emails to all the people on your that you've got cards for. So when you get a deal in, you can email all of them. But you take it a little bit further than that. So Ian, you're interested in me buying properties in Liverpool for you. Okay? We've just met at a network event. I go into the solicitors into the estate agents in Liverpool, or whatever town it is you're working in. I go into the estate agents all the time, and I'm building some quite good relationships. Okay? Now, I'd like to be able to sell you to the estate agents. You know, when you go into an estate agent, they normally ask for proof of funds and all that sort of stuff. If we're going to work together, what I need is some ammunition for me to be able to sell you to the agents in Liverpool so that I can get you the best deals. Is that all right? Okay. So what I would ideally like is bank statements to get you a decision in principle for mortgages around that value. Is that all right? Okay. Now, if he says no, I'm not prepared to give you bank statements, then look, it's probably not. I'll offer you stuff by email then, Ian. But obviously the people that give me the bank statements are the ones I'm going to get the best deals for. Okay. Don't feel shy. It's nothing. The bank statement's a bank statement. Yeah? Now, just imagine I've got 5 Ians that I'm sourcing for. And I've got all their bank statements, I've got decision in principles for all of them. You know, they can see how much they're earning. They're all earning like 50, 100, 200 grand a year. So Tony, you're the estate agent in Liverpool. Hi Tony, I've got an appointment to come and see you. My name's Glenn. Okay. And you'll get appointments by the emails that we send out. And I'm going to run through the estate agent process with you on day 3. As I said on the email, I'm buying properties for some people in London. I've got 5 clients I'm buying for. I've got 5 folders here. This is Ian, this is John, this is I've got all their bank statements in here, so you can see that this is Ian's bank statement, this is, yeah? Now what's Tony thinking? Tony's working in a really crap market at the moment in Liverpool. What's he thinking about? It's a good contact, okay. But what I'm looking at doing, Tony, is really what they need to do is they want to buy properties that are about 40 grand, that need not too much spent on them, that when they refinance them in 6 months' time to get their money back out, they'll value around 60. Do you have anything like that? There are properties available all around the country in the right towns that will value about 20 grand below their asking price, you know, that will be bought 20 grand below what they'll value after a 3 or 4 grand refurb. Okay? They're out there. Okay? The skill is for the sourcer to go and find them. Okay? Now, do you think after I've been working with Tony for a month or two and we've sourced 5, 4, 5, 6 deals through there, he's going to be ringing me when he gets deals? Okay? And do you think Ian will be interested? How many properties do you want to buy this year, Ian? 4, 5, 6? Okay? There'll be people out there that want to build a portfolio for 1 a month. Some maybe 2 a year. So as long as you've got people to buy and properties that are in poorer markets that you can buy at that discount, you're always going to have a market for about 2 grand a deal. Okay. And as you build up 5, 6, 7 relationships with agents in Liverpool, you'll end up with 5 or 6 people that you've met at property network events. What you could do is take it a stage further. Where do you two live? Okay. Does anyone here live up north? Where about? In the middle. Okay. Quite often there's somebody from Liverpool or from Hull or from Stoke-on-Trent, and they do the sourcing, and the person who lives down in the London area goes to the network and sells the deals. So the person up north sources, the person down south sells, and you split the money. And it saves all the driving. Now let me ask you a question, because some people don't like the thought of driving to Liverpool. Okay? And they want to stop somewhere where there's not so many deals. If you were going fishing and you had 8 hours for the day, would you drive for 1 hour, spend 6 hours fishing in a pond that's got very few fish, and drive 1 hour back? Or would you drive 3 hours and fish for 2 hours in a pond that's absolutely full of fish and you're guaranteed to catch loads, and then drive back for 3 hours? Where would you go fishing? And, you know, people go up and they'll stay for 2 or 3 days in a bed and breakfast. And they'll find, you can find 1 day a week doing this, you'll find a deal a week. You'll find a bit more than that, but you'll have some fall out of bed and make 2 grand a week from doing it. What you've got to do is go up to the towns up north where the market's not so good, talk to some agents, preferably go with people's details. But what comes first? It's a chicken and egg question. Do you find the buyers or do you find the estate agents in deals? What do you find first?
No, because you've got to have something to sell.
You've got to have something to sell the buyers, so you need the deals. Now hang on, if you need to go looking for deals, you need buyers. This is kind of where fake it till you make it comes in.
Yes, maybe you could take your own decision in principle and be the buyer initially just to
Some
generate
people are in that situation, some people aren't. Some people are, you know, there's people that are got county court judgments and, you know, things where they can't get credit. And this is one of the strategies that works because it gets them a lot of cash in that they can get out of their situation very quickly. Normally, people with more cash, it's not a strategy I recommend because you can make far more money doing other stuff for your time. But if you've got no money, it's one of the best strategies. I think this is very much you're not really faking it till you make it if you've actually know you've got people that you can get deals that will want deals, and you know that you can find deals through agents. But you've got to kind of act as if, you know, like when I said I've got 30 properties, well, what I really mean is I've got 20 and I'm buying another 10 at the moment. You kind of go, look, I've got buyers in London. In the next couple of weeks, you know, I pick up 1 or 2 new buyers every week. As I get new buyers, I'll bring them to you. And then, you know, you can find a few properties in Liverpool that have sold. And say, look, this is some examples of properties, Ian. This is some of the ones that recently sold in Liverpool. I'm sure these have gone to other investors, but this is the type of thing would these interest you. Okay? And very quickly you'll pick up and build a momentum. And you'll be getting the agents in Liverpool, actually, or wherever town you're working in, ringing you with deals that you can then sell to people. And you just need to go and check them out before the deal goes ahead.
If you go to multiple agents in Liverpool, for example, what's to stop them inundating you with rubbish?
Nothing.
So how do you filter
So you
that
need
one
to
out?
filter it. Okay? So, let's imagine you're the agent.
Okay.
Okay? Right, so my buyer is going to get a private survey on this property before he applies for the mortgage. And that means he's going to get an independent valuation on it. He's actually going to go to Connell's estate agents to get the mortgage valuation, because Connell's will send the Connell surveyor. Okay, and this is how we safety net Ian. So Ian, what we're going to do, we're going to get you a Connell's survey. You need to pay Connell's to make sure it's worth 60. They're not going to know it's on the market for whatever it's on the market for. Well, they're not going to know you're buying it at 40, but they're just doing a genuine valuation for you to tell you what it's worth. You then go and buy it for the price you've agreed at 40. You've got a safety net because you're happy that it's worth 60 because the surveyor said it is. And when you come to refinance, you go into Connell's to ask for the mortgage broker there to get your mortgage. They always use Connell's surveyors. So you're then controlling the right surveyor. Because if you apply for a mortgage through most brokers, you get a random surveyor, don't you? You never know who you're going to get. But with Connell's, you're always consistent. You actually get the Connell's surveyor. So all you need to do is to say to the estate agent, look, I'm going to get, or the buyer will get an independent valuation. I see it's on the market at 60, and you said that we can buy it for 40. But Ian's actually going to make sure and get a survey to make sure it is actually worth 60.
I see.
Okay.
It's the buyer that pays for the survey?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, okay, fine.
If Ian's going to buy this property and you're going to source it for him, I want him to be comfortable that it is worth 60. I don't want him coming to me in 6 months' time when he goes to refinance it and go, oh, I've just had a survey done and it only valued at 40. You sold me this and told me it was worth 60. Okay, and quite often the surveyors will value it at 40 because that's what you paid for it 6 months ago. Which is why you need to set yourself up in advance with a survey done at the full proper price before you then negotiate the discount. They'll take an element of refurb, but surveyors are the strangest things. You know, I've got a surveyor that does a survey for the bank that we always ask for an after refurb valuation, and here is the schedule of works that we're going to do, and we talk them through it, and he will always value it 30, 40 grand wrong. Always, consistent. No doubt. But it's great because we know whatever he says it's going to make 30 grand, 40 grand more. It's a standing joke with the bank. And then, because I'm JVing with somebody in my partnership program, I then pay for a survey at the with Connell's to make sure it comes back at the higher value if they're using their own money to buy it, because I don't want any come back later on. Yeah, so they get a valuation done and they're comfortable that it's actually worth what it is. You know, what we're saying it's worth. And I've covered my base.
Is that how sourcing in a low area, so like you said, doing the searches, that's how it makes the value stay or go up?
You need to get the value done at the market price and say to the surveyor, look, this is a schedule of work, so we're going to do this property, what will it be worth? I'd like to employ you to do a valuation for me. Are you prepared to do an after-works valuation? Countrywide won't.
There's an estate agent that advertises for deals for changing properties to HMO, but plus the
that's because he's got clients that are willing to take on rent to rents. In fact, they're probably doing it themselves.
Yeah, but they're charging that market value. So would it be a case of if you'd done something similar, but you'd be having a look at?
No, that's rent. That's rent to rent. We're talking about sourcing properties at the moment.
Right.
Okay, we'll move on to rent in a minute when that question is But there's all sorts of stuff going on with rent to rent at the moment.
What's to stop the buyer going direct to Connells and
Absolutely
asking them the
nothing.
question?
Ian, do you want to travel up from Brighton to Liverpool to have a look at one of these properties once every couple of weeks to save yourself a couple of grand?
I see.
You know, you can have it. He's got a day job. There's a doctor, or he's
Gotcha,
managed to
yeah.
get to the network event. You can have a contract, an introducer's contract, which says if I offer anything to you, you're not, if you go and buy it, you still owe me £2 grand. You try enforcing them. It costs you 100 grand to take them to court.
Gotcha.
Okay, but most people aren't going to worry about paying you a couple of grand if you found them a property. And you'll end up with probably a main body of about 10 clients that you buy for all the time, regularly, and 4 or 5 agents that you get most of your deals from. And it's £2 grand a week.
Which will be the people that you're buying that property for want a property that's going to increase in value. But in that sort of area, are those properties they're probably less likely to increase in value?
Right, now this is the what if thing again, okay?
But then it's not your problem.
It's not your problem. Some people want capital appreciation. Go buy in London where the houses are 300-400 grand, okay? Or you can buy them for 30 grand, 40 grand in Liverpool and have a cash flow. It doesn't suit everybody.
Thank you.
But your board, your clipboard, that you're going to sit outside one of the corridors, you know, where you're going to get the most footfall at a network event. It's going to say, I'm sourcing properties in Liverpool. So you only... Yeah, it's cash flow, yeah.
You're saying that the property's worth 60, when it's valued at 60, that you're going to get it for 40, but its post-refurbishment value could be 60 plus, is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that the post-refurb is 60, 65 grand, yeah. But you're getting the other person that you're sourcing for to pay for the survey. It's a couple hundred quid, it's 250, 300 quid for the survey.
So you're getting so the post-refurbished value is 60, but you're getting it for 40?
Yeah, there or thereabouts. Yeah, it might be that you're paying 35 for it, and you know, or you might be paying 45. The person that's buying it off you, some people are probably happy to be buying at close to market price and getting 10 grand discount. You'll end up buying them more properties than the ones that are more fussy, but you can charge more for the ones with the bigger discount. There are some surveyors that won't do post-refurb valuations because they don't know what quality you're going to do. Okay. But it's a matter of making sure that when you employ them that they will. It's not just Connells, it's the Sequence Group. William H. Brown, they've got like 5 colour balls. Who else is in the Sequence Group? There's about 6 or 7. But they're out there. The clients are out there, the deals are out there. You have a heads of terms. Whenever I do a deal with anyone, I always have a heads of terms. Right. Okay? So let's look at heads of terms. Whenever you do a deal with anyone, have a heads of terms. 9 times out of 10, a business relationship breaks down because of misunderstanding. Okay? If I sorted a deal out with you, Malcolm, this is what we're going to do, da 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 da, you happy with that? Yes. You might go and share it, and I might go and share it, and you be going, are they talking about the same thing? Because Chinese whispers kicks in to a certain degree, yeah? Imagine if we were trying to remember what we agreed 6 months ago. And so I do something and it doesn't quite work out. In your head, you go, actually, that's not what he told me. It might be that it's because I've got it wrong, and it might be because your memory's wrong. If you can refer back to a heads of terms, you'll go, Glenn, look, this is in our heads of terms. You're not correct in what you're saying. I'll go, oh yeah. If he come to me and said, actually, no, that's not what we agreed, and I remember it a different way, and I'm going, no, that's rubbish. We definitely agreed that. You've then got a difference of opinions going on. And whilst the business relationship might get over 1 or 2 of them things, every time the relationship gets worse and worse, yeah? So with the heads of terms you can refer to, you both know where you stand. So have a heads of terms. It might be that they pay £500 retainer to retain you to go and find the properties, and they pay you the other 1,500 quid on completion. But the heads of terms you make up as you go along between the two of you. Have a standard heads of terms that's going to be more in your favour. Any more questions before we move on to the next strategy? So rent to rent. First of all, you've got to look at ratios. Everything we look at is all about ratios. What ratios are we looking for in rent to rent? The concept is, Ian's got a property, he lives in Brighton, he's got a property in Milton Keynes that he's had for some time, it's been empty for a while. The estate agent that's been looking after it hasn't been doing a very good job. The last tenants have wrecked the property. Ian, I'm happy to take over this property, pay you £700 a month. I know you were getting £750, but I'm happy to pay you £750 a month on a 2-year contract. How does that sound?
And I don't have to pay an agent's fee.
No, you don't have to pay an agent's fee. It's just...
So I'm better off than before.
Yeah, and, you know, I'll pay you money every single month.
Great.
Okay. What I'll be doing is the following. Okay. Now, A or B, what's going to work? I'm going to get a load of tenants and rent out rooms random to these people and make a load of money. Okay. Or look, I've been asked by a corporate company to find some houses, a house to house 6 or 7 of their staff.
Oh, so you're a professional agent working for companies?
Or, look, Ian, I'm going to be building a property in this area very soon, and I've got 6 or 7 Polish builders that I need to put into the property, so I'm looking to rent somewhere out for that purpose. Okay, this is going back to the traffic 60 doing 30 in a 30-mile-an-hour limit. You know, your intention is to rent the properties out. The most important thing is, I think, from an integrity point of view, there are people out there who go and do it and don't tell the landlord they're multi-letting a house. If there was a fire, first of all, the landlord wouldn't be insured because he's got ordinary buy-to-let insurance and not HMO insurance. And second of all, he might end up going to prison for providing a multi-let that doesn't work properly, that didn't have all the stuff done to it, all the standards. So I think it's really important that you actually let the landlord know that you are HMOing the property. However, what you tell them it for, if you tell them that you're just going to find random tenants to make a profit, you're not as likely to get properties offered to you. Okay? But if you're sourcing properties for Spanish IT workers, or whatever it is that you're sourcing, then you know most people are happy to rent to you. If you go to an estate agent or a letting agent and start saying you're looking for properties like this, some of them will say, oh, actually that's back to back, we don't do that. And some of them won't. That means that you're subletting. Subletting. So they'll say that they're subletting. We don't allow that because they don't want you renting out a property that they're not getting all the fees for. Okay, and that's what that estate agent's doing in Cambridge, I'm sure, that they're taking on properties that they're paying a fee for and actually making money by renting them out to students individually or whatever it is they're doing down there. Okay, but potentially, if you get the ratios right, now looking at London and looking at the different postcodes, you can find that there might be an area where it's £1,200 or the next postcode to rent a 3-bed house with 2 receptions might be £1,200 in one postcode and £1,800 in another postcode, very close to each other. But the room rent may be standard, so you've got to look into detail at what rooms rent for in the area, in the postcodes you're searching for, and what 2 and 3 bed or 3 bed houses rent for, so that you can actually work out which ratio works best. I look to get a margin of between £800 to £1,000 per deal.
So you use Rightmove a lot for your sales comparisons. Is there a preferred one you would go to see what the average room rates are for any website?
I would normally look at how the housing benefit rate in the area. The housing is a good comparison for rents in an area, because they work on 33 percentile of the rent of an area, so they've already done the work for you. And Rent a Room and Gumtree, the average rent is, yeah, it's based on the average percentile, so that's the bottom end of the market. So if you look at all the average rentals in Milton Keynes, the 33% average, 33% of the average is the rate they fix, yeah.
Do you want me to draw that in a bell curve so that you can see it? Shall I do that? Just it helps to understand that the government have actually identified that rents follow this pattern where this is what they call the median rent, and in Brighton for a 1 bed that is 700, what is the latest median is 750 for a 1 bed, and rents follow this, what they call the bell curve distribution. And so if this is 0 and this is 100, they've identified that what they call the 33rd percentile, in other words the bottom third of the market, is the only type of rent that you're going to be allowed under LHA. You can't any longer live in these flash pads. That they've stopped that. They've wiped this part out. It used to be what they call median rent or 50th percentile. So the government are now insisting that anyone on LHA lives in the bottom third. But that works in a lot of markets still. It works very well. I've got a 33 square metre 2-bed flat, which is the size of a studio, but it's a 2-bed flat, and it's always gets top money because I'm getting a 2-bed rate for a studio space.
And that's per claimant, isn't it? The 36%.
But all they do, you can go onto, you can just put into Google LHA Direct, and name the town, and it'll come up with the rent in that area for rooms, or the rent in that area for 3-bed properties. Whatever you're researching, it will give you a very good comparison of the town to town. It's to use it on a town to town comparison to see which town ratio works the best. Now, what can you achieve out of rent to rent? Well, I look at targeting between £800 and £1,000 a month profit per property. If you take on properties at £300 profit when they are fully let, you will be doing a load of work for no money. I know a lot of people who've got into this and said they've got 20 or 30 rent to rents that are all making about 300 quid, 400 quid a month profit if they're fully managed, and because they've taken on so many they can't manage any of them properly, so they end up going bust. A property, as a rule of thumb, will cost you, a 3-bed property will typically cost about £500 a month to run as an HMO, or up to about 8 rooms it will cost you £100 per person per month to run, okay, as a rule of thumb. It's a very quick calculation. It's about £100 per month per person. It costs you £500 a month to run a property, because that covers the gas, the electric, the water rates, TV licence, internet, council tax. Yeah, normally. Yeah, some areas they pay their own gas and electric. Some areas, some of my students will actually put a cap on that if they use more than a certain amount of electric, he'll bill everybody proportionally for the overrun. But what's achievable? Does anyone know Steve Hackey? He was sitting where you were probably about a year ago now. So, hi Glenn, it's Steve Hackey. Hope you're all good wherever you are at the moment. Now, he got 4 properties over a 4 or 5 month period that were cash flowing between £800 and £1,000 a month. Okay. Just wanted to say that just over a year ago, I jumped head first into your mentor program. I've now just booked to go to Australia for 3 weeks over Xmas and New Year. My business has paid for this and will pay me while I'm away. So I wanted to say thank you. Can't wait for the next step. Partnership program. Speak soon. You'll do a deal with the landlord and say, look, I'll pick up any minor maintenance. You'll still have to do any wiring. You'll still have to do the roof if there's a problem with the roof. You'll still have to do the boiler if there's a problem with the boiler. But all the normal niggly things I'll deal with. Again, it's kind of a heads of terms negotiation. Some people get the landlords to put all the fire rigs in, put the fire doors in, do all that, and say, look, if you rent this to me for 3 years and do this, I'll take it for 3 years. It's a negotiation.
You know, earlier you were saying about you mentioned to say like 2 year agreement contract. So what happens if you get into it and after 6 months you sort of think, well, I don't really want to carry on for 2 years? So won't you stand legally pulling out and vice versa if the landlord if he decides to pull out?
Well, you're going to have a heads of terms or a contract.
And you're legally blinded.
And you're legally blinding, but you know you wouldn't go into. That's why you've got to be making enough profit out of it.
So do you do diligence first?
Yes, of course. Yeah. We post or recommend you post gold mine ads in the area. If you think you can rent a room out for 80 quid a week, post an ad on Gumtree and say I've got a room for 80 quid a week in this area and see how many phone calls you get. If you get loads, you'll probably get more money. If you get none, you make sure the advert went in. Okay? And if it did go in and you're not getting no phone calls, then you probably got your numbers wrong. But gold mining ads are brilliant. Put in a test on Gumtree or somewhere like that before you actually buy the property or take the commitment of the property. You get a feel, you know by the amount of phone calls you get that you'll be alright.
But then will put out after 6 months and because it's legally binding, isn't it?
Yeah, you get a management agreement rather than a tenancy agreement. A lot of, if you go and get them through a letting agents, they'll want to put you on a tenancy. Okay. And then you have to have a side agreement that they'll rent it to you for 2 years, or repay you the work that you spent on it for fire doors and all that. It's a negotiation. If you're not in an Article 4 area, under permitted development, you can rent out up to 6 rooms at a house without having to officially get change of use. You may be invited to apply for change of use, which is kind of compulsory if they invite you to. Okay, but if they don't find it, you can run it under permitted development. If you're in as Article 4, it actually says there's no permitted development. It actually excludes permitted development, and you have to get planning permission, and they just don't grant them. A 2-storey house does not need a licence, unless it's in an Article 4 area. A 3-storey house needs a licence applied for within 3 months of the 5th person moving in. Okay, that's when you actually need to apply for the licence. I do know of somebody who locally got fined £40,000 for having a licensable HMO that wasn't licensed, and the maximum fine was 40 grand, and he was in joint ownership on the property with his wife, so they fined him 40 grand each. So as I said, potentially within a year you can be earning 10 grand a month from that strategy without needing too much cash. We charge a 250 quid non-refundable setup fee. if if someone wants to move into a property. It's a great source of income for the letting agent. And if they change their mind, they don't get their money back. And if they moan, you say, well, look, we've had the house empty for this period of time waiting for you to come in. Everyone pays $250. And then we do the referencing, the guarantor referencing. Every single one of our tenants has a guarantor. Every single one. You know, there's so many people out there fighting for our houses, it doesn't matter. You know, and it's brilliant because the guarantors are all earning, are all homeowners, and if you don't have one, you don't get a property from us. We run zero tolerance. I had too many sob stories about stuff and reasons why not to pay. It's like, no, the mortgage company wouldn't listen. Like, we run zero tolerance, and we tell people, and on the day that somebody's late, we will phone up their guarantor and say, they're late today, we're just going to this is just a courtesy call to let you know we're debiting your credit card by what they should pay. And they normally go, can you give us a couple of hours please? But we used to get people ringing up for maintenance, even though it says, if you've got maintenance, please text or email. People would ring. And, you know, and then we'd say, okay, someone will be with you between 1 and 5. And they'd ring at 3 and say, nobody's here yet. Oh, well, yeah. And you get loads of phone calls. So we put £1 a minute phone line in for maintenance. If you've got a maintenance problem, you ring that. So if they ring the office and say, I've got a maintenance problem, you go, actually, you need to ring that number. Yeah, but that's on your next desk. Yes, but that's £1 a minute phone call. Please ring that number. We want them to text or email because it's easier for our staff to manage. If they ring us, £1 a minute. Thank you very much. But we run zero tolerance. If somebody's applying for a council house and they've got a CCJ for rent arrears, do you think they'll get a council house? No. So, when they're 3 days late with their rent, if we hadn't got the guarantor's credit card details properly, and something went wrong, this is what we used to do all the time until we started doing the guarantor thing, we take out a county court judgment on them when they're 3 days in arrears. 3 days, county court judgment, bang. Right, shall we move on for flipping? It's the same formula for flipping as it is for building up a portfolio, okay, to work out what towns work for flipping. The biggest challenge we've got flipping is the buy-sell cost. I was buying a house for 100 grand and spending 10 grand on a refurb. I need to sell it for 140 to make a 10 grand profit. My cost for buying and selling a 100 grand property is 10 grand. Right. Does anyone else want to give me a value of a property and I'll tell you how much it costs to buy and sell it? Okay, 250 grand house. About 35 grand. Okay, buy sell cost 35 grand. How long would it take you to work that out? If you got your spreadsheets in order, it might take you a couple of hours, yeah? Anyone want to give me another price on a property? 150. About 18, 20 grand. Buy sell costs. Solicitors in, survey, mortgage, 2% set-up fee, paying the mortgage for 6 to 8 months while you're actually doing the house up and selling it, estate agency fees to sell it. You add that up, the running cost, okay, up to 125 grand property. Why 125 grand? Stamp duty goes up to 1%. After 125 and a penny, or 125 and a penny, you're paying 1%. Up to 125, you're not paying the stamp. Buy sell costs are 10% of the purchase price. And if you spent your half an hour working it out on your spreadsheet, you'll get to within about £1 grand. Yeah, so this is good to within about £1 grand. from 125 to 250. How much is the stamp duty in that bracket? It's 1%, yeah? In that bracket. So what do you think their buy-sell costs are in that area? What do you think it goes up to? From 10% to what? 1% stamp duty to add to it. So round there is 12%, up to there is about 14%. So can you see that if you're buying a 250 grand house and selling it, you need 35 grand margin in it just to break even on your buy-sell cost. So what about a 500 grand house? Well, let's go 250 to 500. Stamp duty goes up to 3%, yeah. So it's pretty much 20%. Buy-sell cost. So 300 grand house with the buy-sell cost at 20%, what's your buy-sell cost? 60 grand. It's a hell of a margin to have to build into something. So do you think it's easy to buy stuff in London and do it up and sell it? There's no margin because it doesn't cover your buy-sell costs. Unless you've got cash to do it, in which case you're going to save probably about half of that. 250 grand to 500 is 20%. £60,000. A 300 grand house at 20% is 60 grand, yeah? It is, and if you do the maths, it's almost impossible to buy stuff and do it up and sell it and make a profit if you're buying stuff over 250. Most of my stuff in my partnership program, I won't pay more than 180 for stuff. Yeah, buy at 180, sell at 250. So it's very easy. So if you came to me and said, Glenn, I've got this property I think is a good deal, my first question would be, okay, when we've done what we need to do to it, what will it sell for? So if you say to me 140, so okay, what profit do we want to make? Well, we want to make 20 grand. What's our buy-sell cost? Because I can see with a 10 grand refurb, okay, and 10 grand buy-sell cost, we need to be buying that at 100 grand. So if we know we can sell it for 140, we work backwards and go, okay, our refurb's going to cost that, our profit margin we want is that, and that's going to bring us back to 100 with 10 grand buy-sell cost. So we need a 40 grand margin. So there's a price bracket where you can make this 20 grand. Is it worth buying a property, doing it up and selling it to make 5 grand? Is it worth doing it for 10 grand? It's a lot of hassle for 10 grand, a lot of risk for 10 grand. Okay? So we can't really buy properties at 30 grand and make 20 grand margin, can we? We raise our deposit from private finance. So we raise 110% of the money, the purchase price, which is normally enough to pay for the refurb. But we pay good money to people for that. We pay 1.5% a month. If anyone's got any spare cash that they've got sitting about, we've always got deals that you can earn money on. We're typically looking at buying between 80 and 180 grand. It's the price bracket. There's no point in doing underneath it because there won't be a 20 grand margin, and there's no, this is going to sell at 250. There's no point in paying over 250 for properties because you just won't get the discount to give you the 20 grand margin because the buy-sell costs are just too dear. Unless you're splitting it or doing something different. Yeah. And I won't do 1 year projects unless there's 100 grand in them. Okay?
Slightly more complicated. So what happens if the buy is in one bracket and the sell is in the other? You just have to average out.
Yeah, I'm going to want to make, if I'm buying at 250, I'm going to want to make nearer 30 grand.
Yes, thinking of that example I spoke to you about, buying at 450, sell at 9, but you're spending the best part of 200k for the development, is how you would do your very quick formula?
Yeah, I would only do them deals personally if I can JV with the owner on a delayed completion and do it. Because then that way you haven't got the funding cost on 400 grand of loan money. But we went through it, didn't we?
Yeah, no, I just wondered, because I saw you doing it in your head in the meeting, but now I know how you've done it, so I wonder if we could do that as a worked example.
Yeah, we can.
Just to see how that ticks out and you scribble it on the board.
Okay. Do you want to do that now?
Yeah.
Got it. So, end price.
900.
Start with the end in mind, yep. End price 900. Cost of works. So what's that, 200? $175 plus 10% is 17, is plus 35. So it's 210, 215, yeah? 215. So 215 works. So 900 is the end price. So now let's look at the purchase price, the cost. 215 buy sell cost. Is a year project. What we're doing with it?
Taking the roof off, adding
another story.
Steep pitch, so yes.
Okay, to go up into the roof. So it's to add value in an area where it's, yeah, okay. So the cost of doing it's 215. It's a year, so what's the purchase price? So 450 is the purchase price, and it's probably going to be nearer 25% because it's a year project. But buy sell cost at 20% are 90 grand. So we're going to call that 100 grand in buy sell cost, yeah? Now the chances are that that's going to go up in value over the year.
Well, they valued it 950 by the lower end of
Yeah. So what was the conclusion when we looked at this before?
just financing costs.
Yeah, it's just tying up a lot of money.
It's 12 months really for the development.
Yeah.
And then you've got to leave
Six months to sell it, yeah.
So it's just a financing cost to kill it.
Yeah.
We've gone through with the guy. He needs to either just get rid of it, so
Yeah.
we can't do a JV while he holds it.
But typically for this to work you need to be buying in this price bracket. Okay. For this to work. So therefore what we do, we go onto Rightmove. We put in a maximum price of 160, minimum size 3 bed. And we want about 100 properties to come up in the area. So if I put that at Milton Keynes, we're probably not going to quite get that now. So to be technical, you want 100 properties for sale under 160 grand per 100,000 properties in an area. There needs to be 100 properties on the market in that price bracket for you to either think about going and doing buy to let in that area or buy to sell in that area. Okay, because in that will bring up the right price bracket where the buy sell costs are achievable to make, as well as the 20 grand you want to make. It's a 40 grand margin that you need, which makes it difficult to find properties. You need a 40 grand margin to make 20. And we'll talk through the process that we use with estate agents Saturday morning. Now, when it comes to buying properties, you know we talked about Ipswich. We're actually looking, when we're flipping properties, for the opposite of when we're building a portfolio. We want low yielding areas because there's less buy-to-let investors to compete with. But guess what the most common type of property that we buy when we're flipping? Bungalows. Why do you think we predominantly end up buying bungalows? Probate is the source of most of them. Our advertising actually says if it stinks of we, think of me. Okay? And we're going to send that out on your marketing messages because that will get laughs and get your rapport going very quickly. Okay? Why bungalows? Okay, when we come to buy a property at a 3-bed, 2-storey house, who are we competing with to buy it at a cheap price? Families who want to build, you know, happy to do the work and buy somewhere a bit cheaper. What about bungalows? What's the type of person who wants to move into a bungalow? Okay, do they want to do a load of work? So what we find is that bungalows that are on the market tend to stick, because if they're horrible, they don't sell because nobody wants to buy them, because investors don't buy them, because bungalows yield lower. Because the bungalows, 3-bed bungalows are normally dearer than 3-bed houses, aren't they? Yeah? So they yield lower. Okay?
And a lot of them haven't had work done to them for years as well.
A lot of them haven't had work done for years. The probate ones stink. We need lots of work. We need smelly houses, because otherwise people will pay too much for them. You'll get a premium for nice properties, but the market isn't normally for the older people to buy them in a mess. So typically they go to developers to do up to sell.
In Brighton, they're the only affordable family home, so
it's a different market.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we look to target them. Now, is a town where you buy properties dearer than the little villages around the town, or cheaper? Yeah, the villages are slightly dearer, aren't they? Okay. Is the rent in the villages higher or lower than in a town? It's lower. Okay, so what's going on here? The rent's lower, the price is dearer. It's exactly what investors aren't looking for. So if you're doing that in an area where there's low yields anyway, you'll end up finding lots of deals. So we're actually targeting bungalows in villages that need work. What I like buying, we bought one at 176. It's a 5-bed property, 5-bed bungalow that we've turned into a 3-bed bungalow. Because what's your target market, and why would somebody want a 5-bed bungalow? What we do is we take the 2 of the bedrooms and the kitchen out and make a really nice social area. And they're very hard to find. Most bungalows have got tiny kitchens. So when somebody walks in, they'll pay a big premium on a property that's got a nice big kitchen, diner, stroke, social area. We quite often put bifold doors in. And those of you that come back to my house, you'll see what we've done. Our kitchen's 8 metres squared. And we've got bifold doors right across it. But it's a nice social area. You know, we've had Christmas parties, New Year parties where we've had 50, 60 people and they've all been in the kitchen. And people love to entertain. Like the people buying them properties have got their grandkids and their families coming over, and there's nothing better than to have a nice social area. So you can get a big lift in value by turning the bigger 3-beds into, or you know, the 4 and 5-bed bungalows into 3-bed bungalows with big social kitchens. And you'll make 20, 30, 40, work out the maths. We've just about to put one on the market that we bought for 176. We've spent 45 doing it. Okay, and that's going on the market at 320. Because we've added value. And yet the agents told us it wouldn't sell for more than 250, done up. And then they came and saw it and went, oh my God, this is not the same house. And again, we've got pictures of all these that I'll put up and play over the next few days. So that's flipping. Okay, you've got to get the right area and target the villages. You'll target your marketing in the right areas. You'll target estate agents. It's far easier to go into an estate agent and say, I'm looking for bungalows in the surrounding villages that need work, if it stinks of we think of me. You know, our expertise is in identifying stuff that other people have missed. And giving us, it's all about getting that extra advantage. You know, there's a lot of deals out there with houses in the garden that you can do it up, sell it, break even, sell the plot for 20, 30 grand to a builder. You don't even need to build the houses out. You know, if you can sell the plot for 80, you can make 80 grand profit typically. So therefore, why not make the 160 and build it out? So finally, I want to talk about building a portfolio that cash flows between 3 and 10 grand a month. To get a property that cash flows 3, or to have properties that cash flow 3 grand a month, how much on average do you think a property that you single let will make you a month? So let's base it on 200, yeah? Profit. How many properties do you need to make 3 grand a month? In the ideal world. Okay, unfortunately, property investors have, apart from the taxman, several enemies stopping you make 100% of the money, the potential that you can make. So we have little enemies called voids, non-paying tenants, bless their cotton socks, and maintenance. Okay? So in reality you need more like 18 properties to cash flow you 3 grand a month. Now that's quite achievable, isn't it? Buying a portfolio of 18 properties is quite an achievable thing. So getting yourself a 3, 4, 5 grand cash flow from a portfolio is okay, is fairly achievable. 10 grand cash flow. Yeah, how many properties do you think you might need for a 10 grand cash flow? 60? 50 is the number to make 10 grand, isn't it? Who wants a job? Okay. Exactly, once you get that many, you need staff. So you actually need somewhere between 90 and 100 properties to get a 10 grand cash flow. Now, is that achievable in the current market? Can we get, there are mortgage companies out there that will lend to people with 80, 90 houses? No, it's very hard to build it up to that. Now, a lot of people put 10 grand as their number they're looking for their cash flow. So what we've done is we've come up with another 4 strategies that you can make 10 grand a month from that doesn't have to come from your portfolio. Okay, which we're going to go through over the next 3 days. So what I need you to do is your home play is to come back tomorrow morning and we're going to go through a business review for everybody, and I need you to say, look, I'm going to be working this strategy in this area. I need to know how much time and what your working capital pot is. You can come and tell me privately before if you don't want to share it with everybody. Okay? You actually, and where you're based, so you'll go something like this, that I'm based in Milton Keynes, I'm going to be doing flipping, I have a working capital pot of this and I have 1 day a week to put into it. And I'll say, yes, that'll work, or no, it won't. It might be that you turn around and say, I live in London and I'm going to do rent to rent, and when I get a 10 grand cash flow I'm then going to move on to a different strategy. My next strategy after that, when I've got a 10 grand cash flow, is this. What I want you to all do is by tomorrow lunchtime, when we've gone through everybody's business plan, because you're doing a business plan, that it's a workable plan that you can take out of here and make happen. You know, we'll then start looking at all the marketing you need to do. We'll do marketing. We'll get you. You'll get by the process we give you you'll get leads and deals and phone and properties to visit over the next week, over the next 2 weeks. So you'll be going out of here with appointments, a method of dealing with appointments, and we don't let your notebooks get dusty, as you know. Okay? So I want to know what strategy, what town, what time you can allocate to it, and then once everybody's got their business plan, we can then start looking at giving you tools for your toolbox so that you can go and see somebody and assess the situation and use the best tools. Now, are you going to... Here's a scenario. Somebody came to me, said, Glenn, I've got this 100 property, it's worth 140. I know you're not going to pay me 140. I actually need very quickly some money because I want to buy a business in Spain and I want to go out there. So I'm happy to sell you the house for 100. Who'd buy that? If you wanted to flip the property, what would be your process? They've come to you and said, right, I want to sell you this house that's worth 140 and I'm willing to sell it to you for 100. So I actually said to the person, why do you need 100 grand? He said, because I've got an 80 grand mortgage and I need 20 grand as fast as possible so I don't miss this business opportunity in Spain. There's a bar out there that I can buy for 15 grand including stock. I want to go and run that and I need a bit of money to go with. So therefore I need 20 grand as quickly as possible. So I said to him, how about we exchange contracts with 20 grand in the next 3 or 4 days. I'll allow you to release, or solicitor to release the 20 grand to you. You can bugger off. Give me a management contract to run your house. I'll do what needs doing to it, put it on the market. I'll sell it. When it sells, your mortgage will get paid. I've got to reduce my buy-sell costs down. Sold it for 145. No. Why would I want to buy it if I didn't need to? Yeah?
So that management arrangement, you'd have to go get permission off the mortgage company?
No, because I act as a manager for the property. Okay? I'm just doing it up to sell it. That's just a vehicle that allows. They're allowed to move away and have the house on the market to sell. We're not renting it, I'm just doing it up. But the management contract allows me access to it, and that's negotiable. With them, they didn't ask, they just wanted to go. They didn't ask, so I didn't offer. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, quite often we'd put a 6-month clause where after 6 months we start paying it. It's down to whether they ask the questions. Not everybody asks the questions. As soon as I said, look, I can give you 20 grand in 2 or 3 days' time, it's like, yes, we'll take it. You need to explore all the deals to the full, just to explore where you can make extra money. So, home play, come in with a written up strategy tomorrow that you can read out to the group. We'll say, yes, that's going to work, or no, it's not. If it isn't going to work, we'll work with you to help you come up with a plan that will work. So that the next 3 days, the bits that are relevant for you, you'll take on board. And you can go off after the 4 days and go and do what it is you've got on your business plan. Okay? It's out there waiting for you. Property, what you can make out of property is rude. Okay? Out of the rich list, 50% of them made money from property. Okay, that's not an accident. Okay? What you can make out of property if you do it right is rude. So let's get our plans together, and we'll be kicking off tomorrow, meeting at 9:30 so we can start shop at 10. And don't forget on Saturday evening that we're going to go out for a meal if you want to join us. And Yeah, Sundays you may have a hangover. Okay. So we'll see you tomorrow morning at 9:30 for 10.